Welcome everyone to Publishing 101 for the newbies and people who want to help the newbies, basically. I'm your moderator. I'm Senior Advisor Open Data for the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But the organizers of this session are Audrey. Audrey, I never realized I don't know how to pronounce your last name until like 10 minutes ago. So Audrey Migoadola, is that close enough?
Close enough.
Close enough. All right. And Michelle Levesque, actually same problem there, but French is...
That's a silent, but that's okay. Just there
cool.
to mess you up.
Yeah, these are the people that organized it, and Audrey and I will be presenting for you. So we start obviously with an introduction, and then there's 3 poll questions. So we find out who you are, what you're looking for. The last poll will also be the last poll question will also be the one who decides which breakout room you are going to be put in. So pick the right one there. And then we will have 2 presentations by Audrey and the 2 breakout sessions where we can just discuss. And then we'll wrap it up with hopefully some useful conclusions on what we can do to improve the situation for new publishers. The main purpose of the session is finding out how to support relatively new publishers in their first step, or perhaps their second or third of the IATI journey. We hope to have possible outcomes, source ideas to better guide new publishers, for example, through a newbies corner on Ayati Connect. And this will not be a standalone session because a follow-up will follow later in the year. There's also going to be a 1-pager with existing resources shared to everyone who's here. And let me see. So it's going to be informal, informative and interactive. We don't want to spend a long talking just to you, but we want to have a good meeting of people who can share ideas and tell us what they need. You can drop a comment in the chat box. There's going to be, like I said, some Zoom polls as in the before session, and there's going to be breakout rooms. So I hope you can all have enough room to ask questions and make comments. I hope no one feels too shy for that. So first poll. What type of organization are you working for? There's a couple of options: civil society organization, so an NGO or something similar, a partner country where the activities are taking place, maybe your private sector because you have a business involved in IATI, you're a provider, usually a country that funds activities, a mix of these or none of the above. If you're none of the above, I would love to hear what kind of organizations you are. The providers win, but very closely followed by the CSOs. And I see 2 people who have said none of the above. Maybe you guys can put in the chat what kind of organization you are. Maybe we'll see that later. I hope everyone's typing now. Next poll in the meantime. How much experience do you personally, as a person, not as the organization, have in IATI? I've looked into it, but I've never published. I've published, but I'm not sure if I know what I'm doing. I would be able to teach someone else if I had to, or I'm here by mistake. I don't know what IATI is. Please let me out. Okay, most people are of the first 2, which is great, because you're the people we need in this session. And there's also 4 who would be able to teach someone else if they had to. I think that means that we can exchange some ideas on how to make these 2 groups, how to have them meet. Okay, the last one choose carefully here because it will decide which room we will put you in later. So the first one is, I need help. I need information on how I do this IATI thing. Well, help is the key word here. And room 2 is a bit more strategic. It's about how we can best help new publishers. So if you want to discuss how to do that, please pick room number 2. I think there were 4 people who could teach others if they had to, or maybe that's simply their job. I think those people have all said, I want to discuss how we can best help new publishers. So thank you very much for that. You can still join room number 2, even if you are new, but still have ideas on what we're missing in what we do. So if you change your mind, I don't know, message Sander, I think, and we can put you in the other room. Before we dive into the breakout groups, we'll set a scene by providing a bit of context. 1, common obstacles for new publishers, and then 2nd, some tips and tricks on how to overcome these obstacles. We're trying to make this session as informative, informal, and interactive as possible. So don't be shy. Any comments or questions you have, put them in the chat box. We might not be able to cover all of them if it gets really busy, but we'll make sure to save the comments made and come back to you after this community session. So to set that scene, like I said, is going to be Audrey, who is a business analyst for the IATI Secretariat, and in her role provides support for new publishers to help demystify IATI. And she does that, for example, through the IATI help desk.
Thank you, Taya. So as Taya mentioned, my name is Audrey Magot Adala. Not the easiest to pronounce last name, don't worry about it. And yes, I'll be talking us through just a couple of slides to, as Taya said, set the scene about common challenges that we encounter with publishers who come to us for help, and some of the things that we can do in the form of providing guidance for you to make publishing a little easier and a bit more straightforward. So the first thing that we would like to acknowledge is publishing to IATI, if you've never seen it before, if you've never published this type of data before, is indeed overwhelming. And so be kind to yourself when you start, and don't feel that there's anything that you should already know, because we've all been there. We would encourage new and potential publishers to always begin by looking at the data that already exists, so that you can understand how you might want to present your own data, and to understand some of the elements and the code lists and all the other terminology that is involved with publishing to IATI. So the registry is the best place to start, because that's where you can see who the existing publishers are, what kind of sectors they form or fall into, and what type of data they're publishing. Second of all, if you are planning on publishing to IATI, then you need to find out what your organization ID is, because that's a key part of identifying who your organization is and allowing us to categorize you once you do start to publish. As Taya mentioned, I'm one of the people within the IATI technical team who manages the help desk. So if you have any query, big or small, complicated or simple, the first step is to contact us via the help desk so that we can point you in the right direction. Another place that you can view published data and see how it's visualized and categorized, etc., is dPortal. Some of you that were in the session just prior to this one in the other room, looking at data use, might have some idea of what I'm talking about. And don't worry about taking notes or writing down everything I'm saying, because you will get copies of everything that we're presenting to you now, along with hyperlinks. There are several ways that you can publish your data to IATI. Some people have custom in-house solutions that have been built and coded by developers, etc. But there are third-party tools available that will help you form your data, collect your data, put it in the right format and publish it to IATI. And last but not least, we have a community area called Ayati Connect, and we've created just recently an area specific to new and potential publishers so that you can be around like-minded people and understand the types of challenges that are common, especially when you're at the beginning of your publishing journey. So we would encourage you as well to visit Ayati Connect, and we'll provide, like I said, links so that you can find all these areas yourself. Next slide, please. So if you have a look at the questions on the slide now, it would be interesting to know if you see yourself here, or if you remember ever feeling any of these ways when you started, if you're an existing publisher, or if you're someone who's looked into IATI but hasn't started publishing yet, you've probably asked yourself some of these questions. And the point of this slide is to let you know that you're not alone. Everyone has very similar questions. Everyone comes up against similar challenges. And so these are the sorts of questions that we know people have and that we're going to endeavor to answer in the next couple of slides. And also, should you ever have any issues, like I said, please do get in touch with us on the help desk. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to read every single word on this slide, but suffice to say that we have created an infographic, which you see on the left-hand side of your screen, that takes you through step by step how you publish to IATI, what you need to do in which order, and the types of things you need to have and understand before you move on to the next step. To summarize the many words on this slide, you need to understand how IATI data is structured, first of all, because then that will help you to prepare your own data. So you need to understand the different code lists that govern how that data is structured and the certain rule sets that you need to adhere to so that your data will be most useful for other people using the data. As I mentioned briefly, you need your organization ID. You need to register an account on the IATI website, on the registry. You'll need to choose a publishing tool that best suits your needs, and there are several that are available. You also need to decide what data you're going to publish, because some of the people who are receiving funds through donors will be mandated to include certain information. And so we have guidance on our website that also tells you if you're receiving money from FCDO, for example, here are the things that they mandate that you have to publish. And if you're receiving money from the Dutch government, for example, here's what you need to include, and so on. You also need to make sure that your data is arranged into an organization file and an activity file, and that it's in XML format. And then finally, you'll publish your data. And then you need to make sure that you check for validation errors. Some publishing tools highlight these before you ever get too far down that stage, but we also have a tool called the IATI Validator that does the same job. Then you would check the registry to make sure that your data has published successfully. And if you want to see what that data looks like, you can have a look at dPortal, which has about a 24-hour delay. And then over time, we would encourage you to improve and update your data, which makes sure that it's as useful as possible, not just for yourself, but for other organizations who are also publishing, and also data users, because of course, not everybody who uses IATI is publishing data themselves. People also use it for research. And so we do whatever we can to improve data quality and accuracy over time. So everything I just said, again, I'm not going to read it all, but the first slide was super detailed. This one is a bit less detailed, but the flow is the same with the same points that I just mentioned. And if you're someone who absorbs data in a more visual way, then that infographic would be the most useful way for you to access these different steps. And all of this will be provided either through IATI Connect or when we send round copies of the presentation afterwards. And if you have any questions about anything I just said, do put them in the chat and we'll come back to them. So just to quickly wrap up, the tips. If you ever get stuck, please ask for help. We understand that there are some people who didn't know that the support desk even existed and they were struggling in silence. Please don't do that. Get in touch with us. We can help you, we can guide you, we can reach out to other members of the publishing community if we need to get their guidance if there's something that we ourselves are unsure of, but there was always a way to get to your answer. So please do reach out. Remember that you will need to register on IATI. remember that you need to have your organization ID ready. Check your donor publishing requirements if that's applicable to you, and choose a publishing tool that works best for you, because they all do slightly different things in different ways. And so you need to pick the one that will be most efficient for you to publish your data. Have a look at dPortal to see what already published data looks like. If you want to make sure that your data looks the same as a particular organization, then you can have a look at the way they did it and make sure that you're following the same process, basically. And there's also guidance from other sources other than IATI. So there are some publishing tool providers who have their own wikis on how you publish and the kind of steps that they believe you need to go through to get the best publishing outcomes. And there are other organizations such as Bond who support smaller NGOs in their publishing journey. And they also have fantastic guidance for people that are new to IATI. And as I've mentioned, third time now, do have a look at Ayati Connect, which has a specific area that we've created for newbies. So for those of you who are brand new to publishing, or those of you who are about to begin publishing, this will be a great place. And we as the IATI technical team also monitor those community pages. So if a question ever comes up, we're there to help from that perspective as well. Next slide, please. I think that's it from me. Perfect. So we're going to do breakout rooms now. I believe Sandra's going to, by the magic of technology, put everyone in different rooms.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's basically lined up, I think, in this slide. The purpose, as was already said at the start, for these breakout rooms would be basically to support relatively new publishers in the first step of their IATI journey. And we have two kinds of groups. The first aid group, as we call it, for I Need Help. I think at the poll, most people indicated that they wanted to be in this breakout group. So I've created 3 of them. You will be able to see them on your screen. Hopefully, this is always like this kind of technical things that we have to rely on. But you will see 3 options of joining room 1.1, I need help, room 1.2, I need help, or room 1.3, I need help. And then the second breakout group would be a discussion group more broadly on how you want to discuss how new publishers can get better or like the best support possible.
I think most of us are back. All of us are back, I think.
Yeah, Sam, we got booted out, so I think we're all here.
Yeah, we got kicked out, so I guess that means we got kicked in here. Thanks, Sander, for kicking us back into this meeting. So we had 4 groups in total. First, I would like the group number 1, who was a I need help kind of group. Is any of you, have you been assigned? Have you assigned someone to give us some insights on what your discussion produced?
Was that my group? Oh no, that was Michelle's group. Sorry. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
That was mine. I don't know. I thought I was one, but I don't know. No, we did not. We tried to make it a bit of a working session where we were just helping to answer questions. And we only got through 2, so, or not even 1.5. Which is why I was sharing my email, because it wasn't that we had some sort of overarching. There was everything from how do I get data to what does it mean to budget percentages. So
Audrey's going to be really busy this week and next week and the week after. Okay. But is there anything that struck you as particularly worth sharing, or was it really just very practical? This is what you should do.
Well, I have my thoughts, but I'm really gonna put the team on the line here and say what they thought, because it was a quiet group. But again, I think my thoughts are, I think as new people, this is just overwhelming. This is daunting.
Yes.
And I think the fact that we are sort of sitting here absorbing what people like you and I are talking about is just part of the process. I remember going to my first members assembly and really not knowing what I was doing. And it's more and more you go to these events, you start to feel a little more comfortable. You realize we're not scary people, that those of us that have been here, we might be nerdy, but
some of us are.
Yeah, well, you are, but no. But I think that's my takeaway, and I can't see the faces of any of the people that were in my room, but I do think that it's just that it's like overwhelming, and we all just sort of have to put our toe in the water and slowly get ready for what there is ahead of us.
I think not trying to do everything. Not everything perfect at once. It's fine.
And my communication to them was, you are not alone. You are also not, I mean, most of us, all of us have actually been where they are and how daunting it can be. So,
group number 2, I think, Audrey, you were number 2.
I'm not going to lie, I didn't actually pay attention to what the number was, but I was definitely in a first aid group.
Okay, well, so, whichever number you were, with your group, any specific outcomes that you want to share with us?
I mean, the outcomes were that we answered some specific questions that were raised by members in the room. But, as Michelle just said, I'm really banging the drum of please reach out and ask for help, because struggling by yourself isn't helping anyone. So, but in terms of the specific questions, we had really good questions about that publishing flow, for example. If you're somebody who's joining an existing organization that's already publishing, where in that publishing flow do you need to start paying attention, which was a really good point that I hadn't considered when we created the steps. So I might modify that to point that out. Other good questions about duplication of data in IATI, because if you have been tasked by your donor to publish, but they're also publishing on the same project, does that make you a secondary reporter, or are you just duplicating the same data because you're publishing as an individual organization? Excellent question.
That's quite a detailed question already. Yeah.
Excellent question. We also had questions about people that were using AidStream to publish. Some of the fields for data that they want to include weren't immediately obvious to them where they were. So I said that would be a perfect situation to contact the help desk so that we could go through it together with screen grabs and try and figure it out. And then some excellent questions again about what's the difference between an activity and a file. Are they the same thing? Is an activity a project?
Yes.
Is it that old chestnut? Yeah. And then another good point about reaching out to get support in the final stages just before publication to make sure that everything is as it should be. And lastly, a question about if you have an existing organization that's been publishing for a long time, but some of the first files that they published have become irrelevant for whatever reason, is it better to remove that data or leave it alone? And I highlighted the point that every organization is in full ownership and control of their data, so they are more than okay to unpublish and remove data that they no longer feel is relevant.
Yeah, you can also keep it there if you feel it's a history of what you. Yeah,
the issue was about accuracy, that if that data has now become inaccurate, it's better to remove it for the sake of other data users, because we want the highest quality data possible.
Michelle, I have 2 more groups to cover. So can we come back to your questions afterwards?
Absolutely.
Or your comment? Okay.
Yeah.
There was a 3rd newbie group of unknown number.
Yes, so I think, hi Thea, hi everyone.
Hi.
I was in that group and we had a small group of 6 or 7 people, all of them new, and I think very good questions of kind of if help is needed, where that would go. I think some suggestions of, there is needed of a direct support, and we talked about the use of the help desk, but also a bit of the better documentation of specifics. Maybe a few points to flag of like specific suggestions. There were questions on kind of partner country support. So if there are governments in developing countries having to publish data, which is quite new for IATI, what support is needed? I said, again, using Connect. Some questions around the donor reporting requirements. So I think that's an area about, having more support and specifics there. And then kind of more detailed ones that I think I can also definitely add on Connect after the sessions about codes and all that. But no, good questions from the group.
All right, thank you. And then there was a 4th group that I was in myself that was covering the other question, how do we best help new publishers? And we started by remembering how we started ourselves, and we all have vivid memories of how difficult that was in the beginning. And I think one of the more telling things is someone said we started reading the guidelines from the Netherlands, the publication guidelines on top of the IATI data. That document was written to make it as simple as possible. And she said that was so intimidating. So I think we have to be, and that was really an effort to make it very simple and not intimidating. So I think that shows you we need to really begin at zero, and we hardly ever do. So also, I think someone made the comment that the flow that you shared, Audrey, the first step, someone was quite worried that that would already be too scary for people, like going to the data store or dportal or the publishers and look up. What you see there is XML files. Perhaps that threshold is still too high. So I think our conclusions were from back when we started, and it may have improved, of course. We need to start with what is it, because we have two types of information: very complicated technical stuff and very high level, why is IATI here? But the middle, what is it? Where do I start? Is still a bit, I think, is still missing. I think that's what we discussed. Oh, and Ayati Connect seems like a great place to improve some of our information gaps. Also because you can learn from each other. Michelle, you were gonna add something.
Yeah, and it was in relation to the old data. And I think it's important that we tell the newbies, you know, we all make mistakes. I can tell you, I've had to pull things we've published out because I've either made a mistake or because, and it was mentioned in our group, things become sensitive. You know, for those of us that work in the humanitarian space, there are times, you know, we work in trafficking in our organization.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Trafficking in one country versus the concept of traffic. I mean, sometimes we just say, we can say that we're talking about it, but keep it very generic. In other places, it cannot even be discussed. So we leave it up to our country gurus, the specialists and the country managers, to decide whether that's considered sensitive or not. So there were times when we published things and then had to pull them out. And so it's okay. I know the standard says once it's out there, don't take it out, you know, never pull it down. But I think that also adds a level of fear because people think they have to have it right and perfect.
Right. Yeah, you can. Yeah. Correcting is always big, and especially because you're learning, you're going to make mistakes. Just correct them. But it's not necessary to take a project down once it's finalized. I think that's the point of that point. Correct. In the standard.